Auditors are often required to assess processes that involve a huge number of transactions. Looking at each transaction one by one will require great amount of effort and long period of time. This may be avoided through audit sampling. Under PSA 530, audit sampling is the application of audit procedures to less than 100% of items within a population of audit relevance, such that all units have a chance of selection in order to provide the auditor with reasonable basis on how to draw conclusions about the entire population. This means that the auditor only select a sample big enough to provide assurance while leaving a possibility open that there may be an exception. This also involves sampling risk, which is the risk that the sample of transactions that the auditor select is not enough to represent all the transactions. There are two types of sampling. Statistical sampling occur when the auditor uses formulas to know how many transactions are needed. On the other hand, non-statistical sampling involves that the auditor will decide, based on his judgment, how many items will be included in the sample of a population. Once the auditor has determined the appropriate size of sample, he can now determine how he will select the sample. There are several types of sample selection: random sampling, systematic selection or interval sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, haphazard sampling, stop-and-go sampling, and discovery sampling. After that, the auditor will summarize and evaluate the result. The evaluation to assess the effectiveness of control involves comparing the upper deviation rate and the tolerable rate of deviation. If the upper deviation rate is equal or less than the tolerable deviation rate, the control is effective. While if the upper deviation rate is greater than the tolerable deviation rate, it suggests that the control is not effective. In non-statistical sampling, sampling deviation rate is compared with tolerable rate or expected population deviation rate. Lastly, note that in evaluating the result of audit sampling, the auditor must consider qualitative information such as the nature of the deviations.